to start doing that.
How do you think that people see PJ Harvey now, 7 or 8 or 9 albums down the line, as opposed to, say, the mid-1990s? When, for instance, like a lot of people, they had to focus on the fact that you came from the countryside, which is not your average art school rock band, you know what I mean, from the centre of London or New York or LA or whatever. And also the fact that you were mysterious and you wouldn't talk about your lyrics, so we could only assume that you were what. And they come up with some terrible things about you, like this mad, loony witch kind of thing. I mean, what is it now? What is it in terms of 7 or 8 albums down the line? Has it mellowed out a bit, do you think?
I'd like to think so. The more sort of cynical part of me thinks probably it hasn't changed much, because I think it's very difficult for people to let go of an idea of you.
Yeah.
I find still now that most of the interviews that I do, people have an idea of me that they bring and they fit me into that, and it's usually exactly what you described: strange girl living in the country. Usually they add on kind of man-hating, axe-wielding, you know, sort of angry, can't speak, very shy, reclusive, strange person. And that's kind of stuck. I don't actually think I've shaken that. And I think it's very difficult for people to allow change, really.
Yeah.
But I don't know, that's just my supposition. I might be wrong. I'd like to think I'm wrong. And I know that it seems that a lot of people that come to my shows and come again and again and buy the records are quite open-minded and are willing to take those steps with me and see wherever I'm going next and get used to the fact that to allow change, you know. But I do think it's quite a hard thing to do for people that maybe started off with you back then and still think that's how you are. And I think those kind of ideas that people have about you stick fast. It's difficult to shake.
There was good music in your house from what you once called hippie parents. I mean, there was like the Stones and maybe the Doors and Captain Beefheart and a bunch of others and whatever. Those kind of albums that you listened to are albums that were kind of maybe just there. There were ambient sounds to you in the background that they were playing. When you revisited those albums saying, now I want to hear these and get from these musicians, you know, my own thing, did you find a completely different thing? Do you find you had remembered it from what your parents had been playing, first of all?
Yeah, definitely. It always astonishes me, even now, if I still root around their vinyl collection. And I might pull out a record, think, I haven't heard that. And I put it on and I know every word to it because I played it on rotation when I was like 1.5 or something.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so I did have to sort of go back and rediscover it for myself, because when you're a kid and your parents are playing Beefheart or something, my memories of it were feeling a bit ill at dinner times and I really want them to take it off. Or would be memories of driving around Cornwall, going on holiday, and Mum and Dad playing Beefheart, and I was feeling really car sick, you know. So yeah, I had to kind of go back, and it's only now I realise what a fantastic record collection they have.
And also, besides that, like when they weren't around, did you listen to the music of the day, the teen music of the day?
I did, yeah.
All the radio stuff.
Yeah, when I was, I think I started doing that when I was about 13. I can remember sort of rebelling and going to buy Duran Duran records. And
what a rebel you were.
What are you playing? And I'd have my first record player in my bedroom, and I played Duran Duran and Soft Cell and things like that. Yeah.
But it was important to do that.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Okay, so therefore I have to say, do you realise how important it is for people who like PJ Harvey, who want also to know more about who she is and find out more? They read a magazine, oh, an interview with PJ Harvey, I'll read that. Is it okay with you, the interview process of giving away a few things about yourself? Do you understand that thing of, if you love somebody or really think somebody's great, you want their poster on the wall and you want to know about them?
Yes, I do understand that, because I know how I pounce on reading anything that I see of people that I'm really interested in. Any interview I can find really interested. But it's a strange one with me, because I also know that, particularly in text-written interviews, the way that you read it can be absolutely nothing like how it was said. So I mean, I know that. So when I read that, I know that I'm basically reading somebody's idea of this person and not actually who they are at all.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult thing. I find interviews always disappointing for myself.
Yeah.
I feel I come out of them feeling like I've let myself down. I didn't say that, or knowing, or almost 99% of the time reading back over things and thinking, God, I didn't mean it like that. It didn't sound like that. And it's a very, very painful, horrible process, but I understand it's an important thing to do. I mean, even from the point of view of even letting people know that you've made a record or whatever.
I know you write poetry, I know you read poets, I know you read lots of books, and I know you are interested in all kinds of the visual arts, etc. In fact, more particularly the visual arts maybe than anything else. When you write a song, when you write something down on a piece of paper, and I call it page poetry, whatever, can that become a song? Can it be a song later because you put music to it, or is always poetry and song?
It's all mixed up together, you know. Two words might spark off a whole song. And they all... I haven't written poetry for a while. I went through a phase of writing it a lot, and it helped my lyric writing at the time enormously. And I would lift whole poems and put them straight into song. And then it's just, as a songwriter, things change all the time. And you keep finding different ways in to find a song. And right now, I'm not with poetry at all. It's much more coming from the music first, and words shaping and forming, and then research, you know, and then I'll go to books, or I'll go to the library and I'll look up something to do with these two words that somehow came out of this song, and you can make a song in that way. So it changes all the time. And at the moment, it's definitely not around poetry. It's much more about shapes of words which then lead into stories, and hard to explain, but they come in all different ways, constantly. And it's like this slow metamorphosis. I mean, I've been writing for 12, 14 years now or something, and I just see how all that time it's changing and shifting all the time, and I never really go back to some way I've written before.
Right, yeah, okay. But do you have time for all the other things? I mentioned the visual arts. I mean, you went to university. I don't know if you took it to full 3 or 4 year term or whatever, but the pottery and all that kind of stuff. Do you have time to do all that? Because you often talked about how important it is to the use of the hands. It's not just a painting, or it's not just a piece of whatever. It's just the whole idea of the physicality of it. Do you have time for that? Or is it
I don't have time. I could make time if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I found that as long as, like what I'm doing at the moment musically is fulfilling that need. If I feel that I'm not being fulfilled and I don't have enough tactile, but I don't, you know, I like to play real instruments. I'm not very good with playing synthesizers and stuff like that. So I'm very hands-on with instruments. I need that. So that quality comes from that, and I get my sort of input visually. I go to a lot of exhibitions. I go and I feel like that feeds me so much information, which I express through music and singing and words, and it all feeds the same place, really.
Do you feel you'd be failing yourself if you didn't push yourself? I get the impression you push yourself all the time. And it's the pushing, it's the kind of realisation that you're never really great at whatever it is you do. You never